Call this meeting to order. This is item 1, executive session, and there's a call for executive session pursuant to ARS 38-431.03A and 8 for discussion and consideration of matters related to school safety operations and school safety plans or programs. Is there a motion for executive session?
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Humphries. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Ujetti. Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, concern, we'll take a vote. All those in favor of moving to executive session, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the same. Motion carries 5-0. We will recess to executive session and reconvene here for the regular board meeting.
check.
Okay, we will reconvene and call this board business meeting to order. Today is Tuesday, October the 27th, and welcome to those of you here and those of you watching on live stream. We welcome you to the governing board, the Gilbert Governing Board business meeting. Item 2 is called order 2.01. Item 2.02 is, am I missing Ms. Humphreys? I'll wait for just a minute. Once again, we are at item 2.02, and we will offer a moment of silence, and then we'll go to item 2.03, Pledge of Allegiance, led by Mrs. Humphreys. Would you all please join me in a moment of silence?
Dr. Santa Cruz, could
Yes,
we
sir.
remember the spouse of John Castellano during our moment of silence who passed away unexpectedly this past week?
Thank you for that, Mr. Carr. Anything you want to say?
Yes.
Dr. McCord?
Could I just add,
Yes.
Mrs. Betty Smith, who was a longtime teacher in Gilbert, who just passed away in the last week, and her husband Gary was the building manager at Gilbert L for many years.
And Leanne Lacey, one of our tech services employees, her mother passed away.
So please keep those three individuals, that's Mrs. Castellanos, John Castellanos, Tech Services wife, who passed away, Betty Smith, and Leanne Lacey.
No, her mother.
Leanne Lacey's mother, excuse me.
Gave me a heart attack. If you'll join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you, and I apologize for my clumsiness with the moment of silence. Ms. Wilson, would you please help us with item 2.04, the roll call?
Dr. Charles Santa Cruz,
Here.
Miss Laurie Wood,
Here.
Mr. Reed Carr,
Here.
Miss Shula Ujedi,
Here.
Miss Jill Humphreys.
Here.
Mr. President, all board members are present. You have a quorum.
Thank you, Mrs. Wilson. We move to item 3, is the approval of tonight's agenda, 3.01. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Humphreys. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Ujedi. Any discussion? Seeing none, we will vote on approval of this evening's agenda. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the same. Motion carries 5-0. Move to item 4, Superintendent's Report. Item 4.01, Dr. McCord.
Thank you, Dr. Santa Cruz, governing board members. Good evening to everyone, and welcome to our board meeting tonight. Just some reminders, or a quick reminder, our next meeting will be next Wednesday. It's a work study / brief board business meeting, and that is on Wednesday of next week. Usually our meetings are on Tuesdays, That will be next Wednesday because it is Election Day on Tuesday, November 3rd, and please remember to vote. Some positive things to talk about. We have 5 schools that were awarded the A+ award from the Arizona Education Foundation: Campo Verde High School, Highland High School, Gilbert Classical Academy, Ashland Ranch Elementary, and Carroll Ray Ranch Elementary. So congratulations to all of them. We will be setting up different times throughout this semester and maybe even next semester to celebrate those folks, doing it as safely as possible. Then we have the Best of Gilbert 2020 from the East Valley Tribune. Gilbert Public Schools won the following: Best Child Care Center for VIK and Building Blocks, Best High School Teacher, Nick Cornell from Campo Verde, Best Mascot, Highland High School, the Hawks, Best Place to Work, Gilbert Public Schools, and Best Public School District, Gilbert Public Schools. And then they also have a Best of the Best in the East Valley, and that was for 2020. Gilbert Public Schools won Best Public School District. So congratulations to all of our folks and all those individual winners. It is definitely deserved. Last week, all of our administrators, district teaching and learning directors and coordinators, as well as other district administrators, participated in the very first 2020-2021 Administrative Collaborative Learning Days. Vicki Jones and her department, along with Lisa Janowski, I think I screwed her name up, I'm sorry, Lisa, have taken the lead in redesigning 5 of our administrator meetings into collaborative learning days. To keep the group manageable in size, we split them up between elementary and secondary groups, and we did trainings with them, focusing on learning to design professional learning plan built on campus data to impact student achievement, creating meaningful and actionable learning targets with successful criteria to clarify or focus professional development and growth, and being able to support staff in designing deeper learning experiences for their students to increase student engagement and accelerate achievement. On the secondary level, some important things. Construction is well underway for the front office security improvements at Campo Verde, Highland High, Desert Ridge. They're modeling the entrances, which is very similar to what we did at Mesquite High School last year, definitely for more security. And construction has started at Canyon Valley to utilize the space at the former Power-Based Transportation Center. Canyon Valley will have 2 new science classrooms in addition to 2 other regular classrooms, an office and conference room area. So thank you for all that work that's going into that from operations and our schools. I think it'll definitely add to what's needed for our secondary schools. Dr. Santa Cruz, that concludes my report for tonight.
Thank you, Dr. McCord. And since you mentioned a change in our meeting for next week, would like to, as per consensus from the board in our discussion, would like to arrange for a work study session for Thursday, October the 29th, to discuss contingency plans related to COVID-19.
Definitely will do that.
Thank you, sir. Any members of the board object? Okay, we'll move forward with that. We are at item 5, request to speak to the governing board. We have one request this evening. Ms. Wood, would you like to read that, or should we go with a recorded message? Okay, would you please play the recorded message? The board may make an open call to the public during a public meeting, subject to reasonable time, place, and manner restrictions to allow individuals to address the public body on an issue within the jurisdiction of the public body. At the conclusion of the open call to the public, individual board members may respond to criticism made by those who have addressed the board, may ask the staff to review a matter, or may ask a matter to be put on a future agenda. However, members of the board shall not discuss or take legal action on matters raised during the open call to the public unless the matters are properly noticed for discussion and legal action.
During the open call, the board requests that speakers refrain from voicing complaints against school personnel or any person connected with the district, as it may impact due process rights. Policy KE, KEB, and KED are provided by the board for disposition of legitimate complaints, including those involving individuals. Forms required for use of these policies can be obtained from the Gilbert Public Schools website.
We have one request to speak tonight. It's Mr. Phil Montalvo. And Mr. Montalvo, please come to the mic. You'll have 3 minutes.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I'm looking for the timer. I learned about that the last time. I'm here tonight to ask for some help. So the last time I was here, I shared some perspectives and with regards to some of the data and the optics. Also during that time, I shared some of our personal experiences as the parent of a high school student. Today, my ask for help is to please help us resolve getting some schedule changes. I want to walk you through some of the key points that have happened. Originally, we were given the options of choosing either all in person, all online, or a combination of both of those items. At that time, we made a decision to choose 3 courses at school and 3 courses online. Later, through my own discovery, I found out my daughter had been placed in all at-school classes. So by that point, she had become attached to her teachers, and it was going to be yet another difficult transition to happen. So what I did not understand or realize then, that since that initial communication that students could change, preferably at the semester, now they're locked in for the entire semester. So what I'm finding is that we have actually talked to her counselor, we had arrangements made, we worked out something, and then the counselor called back and was the one who was surprised and actually told me that she either has to choose all online or all at school. So she had resolved to drop her Spanish 4 class. She's taking that for dual credit. She had also resolved to drop some of her other advanced classes. She was going to take dance, which is not available online, and it was important for her to stay with her math teacher for pre-calculus because she's doing well and that's a good connection. At this point, though, based on the information I've been given as of 3 o'clock today, she must either choose all online or all in person. So I would just like some help to know who I can follow up with. There's more details, but I want to be respectful of the time.
This wonderful individual next to you, she'll help you offline, and so after this or at some point tomorrow,
Okay.
you guys can connect.
Okay, thank you so much.
Sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Dr. McCord.
That's Dr. Newman, by the way.
Okay, that was our only request to speak. We'll go to item 6, reports, 6.01, monthly budget report. Dr. McCord and Ms. Betts.
Ms. Betts, it's all you.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, President Dr. Santa Cruz, Dr. McCord, and governing board members. This is our monthly budget report. It's a very short report this evening, but across the board in this report, keep in mind that the budgeted funds, the fiscal year 2021 budget represents what was adopted in June. And then in addition, please know that with all of our work right now with the audit and the development of the annual financial report, which you approved at the last meeting, all of the beginning balances in all the cash funds reflect the final balances that were on the annual financial report that you approved. So to go to the next slide. Oh, I guess I can do that, can't I? Sorry. This is the overall operating funds, and just a note, everything is as has been expected over the last couple of years, where about this time you're going to see more and more encumbrance as well as spent in all of these funds as we move through the year. Remember that this is as of September 30th, representing really 2 months of operating. So again, it does show about an available balance of 23 million. It does include contingency of about 2.5 million. And then in addition, the net available balance is 20.6 million, which really represents represents unexpended budget that has been allocated out, as well as any vacancy savings that have been realized to date. So on the federal grants, the one area that I wanted to bring to your attention is really the last line, the 300 to the 399, the other federal projects. In this particular area, that you will see that updated to reflect the enrollment stabilization grant, which we should have some information next month early, around the 11th or 12th of November, indicating what our allocation will be. We do have some more information about that particular federal grant. First of all, they've eliminated any strings attached to the first $500 per student for the spend of this grant. That represents of about $14.5 million for Gilbert Public Schools. As I've indicated before, we were expecting a need of somewhere in the neighborhood of $28 to $33 million. We believe that our total need will be about $26 million, leaving about $12 million left that will have to have some substantive rationale for how that spend is directly related to the COVID-19 pandemic. So as we had shared with you in the past, our plan was to revise the fiscal year 2020 budget to include the ESG amount of about $10 million so that we can apply spend in 2020 to the ESG grant that accounts for about that $10 million. Our application indicated that it was clearest that the spend in 2020, the last quarter of 2020, was clearly related to the COVID-19 pandemic. We still believe that that's the best way to move forward. And then the $14.5 million will be applied to the 2021 budget. So I wanted to make sure that's clear to all of you. We will have the budget revision to you as early as next week if we can get it turned around. It's really just a matter of adding the ESG grant to our fiscal year 2020 budget. So that will be presented to you first. Then at the same time that we're presenting the fiscal year 2021 budget revision, that's the current year's budget, that is expected to be on the 8th of December. At that point in time, we will also be presenting to you the revised annual financial report to reflect the movement of that about $10 million of spend from maintenance and operations into the enrollment stabilization grant. Again, that's $10 million a year ago and about $14 million for the current year, fiscal year 2021. So before I go any further on that, is there any questions about that?
But I guess my only question would be if you're going to give us a revision next week, from what I just understood that you were saying that the $500 per student, which is about $14 million, would be applied to 2021.
That's correct.
So you're still just estimating that we're going to get that other 10 million that you're going to apply in the revision to the 2020.
Right, and we really believe that our total award will be a total of 26 to 28 million.
Okay, so you're confident in doing that. If it isn't, then will you just revise it again? Is that what happens?
No,
or?
because remember that the budget is just a plan.
Okay.
So as an example, we budgeted $500,000 in 2020. In the ESSER grant, we did not spend any money at all in ESSER.
Okay.
So all we have to do is make sure that we have the budget authority, that when we do get the enrollment stabilization grant, we are able to apply that spend to the 2020 budget.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that for me.
You bet. Okay, great, thank you. These changes here that are highlighted in yellow, the classroom site performance pay, we pay the classroom site performance pay in December and in May. Note that you see an encumbrance there of about $5.9 million. We are holding that in reserve. That's what's expected to be paid in total for this year for December and May. Then the other two items, you can see they show a negative available balance. These two particular state grants are grants in which we are expecting reimbursements from the state of Arizona. The only reason that we're highlighting the enterprise funds is, again, to bring it to your attention that the beginning balances are now reflective of the ending balance recorded on the annual financial report. And then the situation with the fingerprint is comparable to the fact that it's a reimbursement. Basically, we pre-fund the fingerprint costs for employees, and then through payroll deductions, they pay us back. So that's why that's a negative balance. And then the largest change month to month is in that dual credit and Apple, what is that? It's a enterprise. That's the reimbursement from Apple for the repairs that we do on our particular technology materials. And that shows last month it was about $455,000. It's now showing $18,000. That's reflective of the annual financial report work, where we're doing journal entries out of maintenance and operations, and we're putting that spend into the dual credit fund, which is prescribed by statute. So I wanted to bring that to your attention. And then finally, again, these are the school student-based funds, where you can see the beginning balances have all been updated to reflect the annual financial report. And then finally, the bond and debt service reports. Again, this is a reminder that we have two authorities right now that we're dealing with. So Fund 631 is the 2015 bond authority, and Fund 630 is the new 2019 bond authority. You will see these two slides now until we have totally spent the fiscal year 2015 authority. Everything has now been sold on the 2015 authority. This is just, this is just showing the two together, so you can have a quick visual about where we are in our total available bond funds. And then finally, the debt service, you can see that the year-to-date balance, we have not spent any. Our first payment is due in January, and the second payment is due the 1st of July. So you will see the expenditure not until we present the report in February. And that's all I have for tonight.
Thank you, Ms. Betts. Board members?
Ms. Betts, can you go back to the slide? I'm just thinking it through on the dual credit.
Yes. Oh, sorry. There
we go.
is. Mhm.
So remind me of that again. So now we've changed the way, we've aligned it better with what it needs to be, the dual credit. And is it at such a low balance because we don't collect dual credit until school starts, basically, or what
So
happened?
so in this particular case, we are treating it as a cash fund. So you can see it's not a budgeted amount, it's a beginning balance amount.
Okay.
So basically, because we moved the 2020, this is fiscal year 2020, expense out of M&O into the dual credit, that has eaten up all the cash that was in dual
Okay,
credit.
there we go. Okay.
So that's off, so basically then leaving the cash or the budget capacity available for maintenance and operations.
I remember we had talked about that. I just wasn't quite sure how that applied
Yeah, the
to
issue.
a big change in this, but now I understand.
Yeah, the difficulty is using budget versus using beginning balance, the difference
Okay.
between cash and budget-controlled funds.
Okay, thanks.
You bet. Okay, thank you all very much.
Anything else? Once again, Ms. Betts, thank you. Reports are clear and concise. All right, we'll move to item 7.01, health benchmarks. Dr. McCord, and I jumped the gun on my earlier request. However, I think it bears repeating. We want to look at other contingencies as we move forward. Once you have presented these benchmarks, I think it'll be clear as to why we need to have additional discussion.
Oh, that's not what I want. Okay, thank you, Dr. Santa Cruz, governing board members. Tonight, I'd just like to give an update on the Arizona Health Department health benchmarks. And this next slide that I'm going to show you, I think is definitely worth some explanation for the mere fact that if you'll see on the right side of your screen, this is the graphic. This is what they used and have been using since the beginning of their dashboard. And that's where you'll have graphics and they will let you know if you've met the benchmarks in those specific areas. And this actual slide right here, or this graphic, is from the last time I presented to the governing board. And on the first benchmark, which is 100 cases per 100,000 for 2 consecutive weeks, if you'll notice that it says we met that at that time. And then, of course, over on the side, it tells you how many was for Maricopa County. And then the second one is 2 consecutive weeks of percent positivity below. And again, check marks, green, benchmark met. And then on the third one, 2 consecutive weeks with hospital visits for COVID-like illnesses in the region, 10% or below. And of course, that benchmark was met. And then when every Thursday morning, when this is updated around 9 a.m., I check it, and this on the left was the graphic that they're currently using, with some areas that are changed and redefined. And so I think it's worth explaining before we move forward and as I present these in subsequent board meetings. If you'll see, and you can see them side by side, they're essentially the same graphic but with some different meanings. And instead of using the benchmark met area with the green check marks, off on the left, they have color-coded their areas, and it's green, yellow, and red. And in order to be green, you have to have 10 cases or less per 100,000, 5% positivity or less, and 5% COVID-like illness or less. And so for moderate, it's 10 to 100 cases per 100,000. Then 5 to 10% for positivity and 5 to 10% for COVID-like illness. And that would be in the moderate range. And in the substantial transmission range, it's 100 cases or more per 100,000, larger than 10% positivity and larger than 10% COVID-like illness. And so this was a bit to our surprise. And then up in the upper right-hand corner of the graphic, they put the recommended delivery model. And so again, this is something new. This is something that new in a sense that the graphic just looks different, and the benchmarks to a degree based on their color code have changed. And so I just wanted to make that clear as we move on and as we move through this. And so I've tried to change some of the, not the number information, but how it's color coded moving forward. So are there any questions about that?
So, Dr. McCord, is it fair to say that they moved the metric from the specific, or they moved their graph from showing the specific metrics that they'd given as target to now they're giving it to a transmission risk? So it's almost like the state has now aligned to what the county was presenting instead of to their specific metrics that they had published.
That's what it seems like to me, and I can well appreciate what they're doing. It's just difficult when we've been using the information on the right to help guide us, and then it gets changed to the left. And I think it confuses some people. It can worry some people, and I can definitely understand that. But again, this is information that's provided to us, and so this is what we have to work with. All right.
Now, Dr. McCord, this abrupt change, you had no prior notice to any adjustments to the dashboard, is that right?
That is correct. I talked to surrounding superintendents, and nor did they know about that change.
Ms. Ujedi?
This is just Maricopa County, though, correct?
This is just Maricopa County. This information right here, I'll get into the specifics of Maricopa County, but more of the visual for this, just so people here and online can understand, well, why was it look like this on the right-hand side last time and over here on the left? There's no shenanigans or tomfoolery here. This is just the information that they're giving us, and I just want to make sure people understand why it looks different now.
Well, they've also changed their benchmark somewhat, because prior it was below 7% for positivity, and now it's below 5%, and below 10% for COVID-like illness, and now it's below 5%. So they've moved their benchmarks as well.
They have moved their benchmarks as well. I think that's definitely worth stating.
Well, again, I'm not sure that they necessarily moved the benchmarks, except for, because even before they gave a range, we'll use the percent positivity, they gave a range of risk of below 5% and below 10%, but then they set a specific metric of 7%. So they've moved from that specific metric of 7% to only the ranges.
Right.
And would also point out that they changed the scales on the graphs, so the graphs look different even though they're presenting the same data.
Yep. But for the person who, I just think it's important that everyone knows that this is what we've been using all along, and now it looks like this, and so don't want to alarm anybody, but I just want everybody to understand that that's not something that we did. That is something that has been done by the state, and we're just presenting it to you so you can have as much information as possible.
And I think, Dr. McCord, the point that you made, we've already had confusion about these metrics and how we're looking at them with the specific metrics or the ranges, and this is just going to create even more confusion.
And it has. And people, as soon as this came out, we were getting calls and emails about it, and so that's why I thought it was worth explaining this evening. Next, looking at specific data, Maricopa County data, again reported on the 22nd for week ending on the 4th. Criteria 1 case rate is at 70 per 100,000, which is in the yellow based on this new information and this new graphic and standards that they've set. Criteria 2 is 4.6% positivity. That is in the green. It should say trending up, not down, or it does say trending down. Sorry, my dyslexia is kicking in. And then criteria 3 is 2.8% positivity, green, and that's just about level from what we've had in the past. This is Gilbert Public Schools boundary data information. If you'll look, I'll go to the graphic next, but it has the week before, and this was reported, and then this was, of course, reported last week. For Gilbert Public Schools in our area, it is 58.22 per 100,000 for case rate, and that number is going up. Looking off the graphic at the right, last week, or the last time we reported, the week before that, it was 44.19. Criteria 2, percent positivity, 3.9%, and that is also trending up. And then criteria 3, hospital visits at 3%, and that is remaining level. Looking at this information side by side, just once again, you'll see how the county pertains, the entire county compares to GPS boundaries. And then again, this is just over a 4-week trend related to that information. And you'll notice, again, that is going up in certain areas. Well, in all areas in this case. But this is for the county, and you'll notice like in the past, a lot of these were green because that's what the metrics said. Based on these metrics now, I changed them to yellow just so people have an understanding. And again, here's GPS boundaries over time. Before I close, and getting to Dr. Santa Cruz's point of and request of having a meeting this Thursday, I welcome that. What we will bring to you is just some criteria set forth, because we get a lot of questions, because there's a lot of information out there, because we have a dashboard that indicates the number of cases that we have in the district. It is important to know, because now the next question is, well, are you going to go back to online, or are you going to go to hybrid? And I think it's important for people to know where those trigger points are and what those should be, so people have a clear understanding as going through this. When we started this off, there's a lot of information that flows out there, and I think that us being new to some of this information and how a lot of this will look, I think it's important that we have some set concrete criteria to be able to move forward. So not just as a board, me as superintendent and cabinet members, but our staff and our parents, so we can plan ahead and we can be able to move forward. And so that's what I will bring to you in the best form possible. But of course, it's always open for discussion, critique, and suggestions and ideas. So we will bring to you what we think is a good model, and then we will definitely take your suggestions to retool it if need be. So any questions about that?
Mr. Carr?
And Dr. McCord, as we schedule that meeting, we know that will not be at a regular time for the public. We will most likely do that, I think, during the daytime.
Yeah, we're looking at 2:00. We have some people that have some other schedules that they have to keep that are important. And so in order to get this information down, get it out in a timely fashion, we will have to meet during the day, but we will live stream this, and it'll be titled as Special Board Work Study / Brief Board Meeting.
And I just want to make the public very cognizant. That's we're doing that just simply so that we can establish a quorum and have that meeting given individual schedules.
The new metrics or data points will come out that morning too, so I will present the most current for all of you that afternoon.
And Dr. McCord, at this point in time, the county and the Arizona Department of Health Services are only making recommendations to us. They're leaving it up to individual districts.
That's my understanding. In other counties, the county health department may come in and direct them to shut schools down or to do something different. Maricopa County has not done that yet. The only thing that they direct us to do is to send out outbreak letters, and that gets determined by how that's transmitted on or off campus. And so that's the direction we get from them. We definitely want to abide by the things that they have to say, but at the same time, I think it's important for our staff and our students and our families to know what direction we're going and what they can expect as we move forward.
Well, I think the confusing part, and this gets back to, just media and social media and everything, is that, we hear about schools being closed in other counties, and then we read about schools being closed in other districts. And I think the important piece here that we need to remember is that we're trying to make these decisions on our own with just guidance, so to speak, from the county.
I totally agree with you, and I think that on another note is I think our schools, our staff, our students are doing a really, really good job with the mitigation strategies that we have in place. And we need to be mindful of what we're doing on campus and what we're doing off campus, and just know that each one of our schools is a cross-section of that community. And so we have to be diligent, and we have to be understanding of what the expectations are, and because our main goal is to keep our schools open. That's the best place for our kids, if at all possible. And so I think if we are able to do this together, we can continue that. So
I think it's also important to note that, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Dr. McCord, we have, through our district nurse and health services, daily interaction with the county and Arizona Health. Is that correct?
That is correct. I think there's sometimes what you'll hear, and this is education, so rumors love to fly a mile a minute, and that's unfortunate because I think sometimes there's some negative aspects that come out of that. Anytime a COVID case is reported at the school, that is documented. That is given to our Director of Health Services, Jennifer Frost. She immediately contacts the Maricopa County Health Department and investigations begin. Those investigations are what determines how long a student will be out and determines who's been in close contact with that student or staff member and who needs to be quarantined related to that. And that's how that rolls off. There might be rumors that Johnny has COVID or he's been out and, I know they're not reporting it. You know what? That definitely might be the case, but we can only control what we can control. And we will take care of what we know to be true. And so I encourage parents, please report that to the campuses so we have accurate data, we have accurate information, and we can do the very best we can to ensure the safety of everybody there. But again, don't hang your hat on things that you hear, things that you see on social media, because I know all of our, and this is important to me, all of our nurses and health assistants are working their fingers to the bone. They're doing things that they have never been really asked to do, and that is to dig really deep into finding out who's been in contact with who, because they assist the Maricopa County with that. And I just want to thank them from the bottom of my heart, because I know that they are working extremely hard to try to make sure that all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed. And so, again, thank you to them.
Could I just clarify something on what you just said, Dr.
Go ahead,
McCord?
Ms. Ujedi.
Let's say that a student or parent did not report a positive test, we would still get that information, correct, from the county?
We would. They would contact us. I don't know how timely that would be, but they would, once they discover it, they would make contact with us. And so if you've been tested, then that will get reported to the county, and so they will make contact with us. And I will say, does that happen often? No. 99% of the time, everybody is reporting like they're supposed to, and that's appreciated. But it's a possibility, and we need to make sure that we're as upfront and honest about all that information as possible.
Dr. Santa Cruz, I did want to make a comment.
Santa Cruz, go ahead.
I just wanted to say I think it's really, really important to be honest and to have accurate information, not only for us to make good decisions for our schools and our community, but for us to help nip this pandemic in the bud by being able to contact, trace, and help not only our schools stay safe, but our communities stay safer. So I think it's just really important that we work together and do what we can to keep everyone as safe as possible. And that means if you have a case of COVID, please let the school know, because then we can deal with it and then we can take the steps that we need to take rather than not knowing and then other people getting it and it getting more in the community. We just want to do the best we can to keep the spread down, and that is with good, accurate, and honest information.
Thank you. Anyone else? Right. With that, thank you, Dr. McCord, and appreciate the time and diligence in going through the new benchmarks, and hopefully we'll hammer out a framework that can be communicated to all involved and keep us even more firmly on target.
Yep, looking forward to it.
All right, so we move to item 8, consent agenda. Those items are before you. Is there a motion?
I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Thank you, Ms. Ujetti. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Carr. Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, then we will vote on the consent agenda. All those in favor of approving the consent agenda as printed, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the same. Motion carries 5-0. Item 9, action items. Item 9.01, discussion and possible action on a future board retreat. Dr. McCord?
I will turn this item over to Ms. Humphreys, who had requested this as a future agenda item.
Yes, thank you. I am asking that we have a board retreat. We've had many difficult decisions in these last few months, and we look forward to having some more difficult decisions. And I would like to bring in a facilitator. My first preference would be going through the ASBA to have a facilitator to help us in that board retreat. I had spoken with Jenny Richardson on the Mesa School Board. They brought in someone from ASBA to do their training, and she said they were very happy with the results. So I feel like we're doing well as a board, but I feel like these have been hard decisions, and I want to see us come together and build our relationships so that we can bring the community together, because these are very difficult times for everyone.
Thank you, Mrs. Humphreys. In order to move that for discussion, we need a motion. Item 9.01.
So I will move for a board retreat with a facilitator from ASBA.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Humphreys. Is there a second?
I will second it for the opportunity to discuss it.
Thank you, Ms. Ujetti. So we have a motion and a second, and 9.01 is open for discussion. Is there a specific topic that you have conceived for this particular proposal?
This is something where the board trainer can tailor it to our specifications. And I had given out her phone number to the board so they could call her. That I mostly feel like we could work on building relationships and team building activities. That was my desire, but it's something where we could each have input on the training that we receive.
Okay.
And I don't know if anyone made that phone call to her.
I have not made any phone calls at this point. Other board members, commentary, discussion?
I guess.
Ms. Wood?
Yes, Ms. Humphreys, I appreciate you bringing this up. I want us to continue to learn and grow and progress as a board member individually, but also as a board. I just, at this point in time, am wondering with our limited time and with the things in front of us, if this is, I don't know that this would be my top priority.
Well, this is something we could set, we have to get on their calendar, so it could be several months away.
Okay.
I don't know
Even
of the
then,
time
I'm not
frame.
sure that I'm at this point in time willing to devote a lot of time to something like this.
It would be 2 or 3 hours,
Okay. Well,
depending on our.
I guess I've expressed my opinion
Okay.
and letting you know how I feel about it. So I
Okay.
appreciate that.
Any other discussion?
I guess my question would be, it seems backwards to me to schedule a meeting and then say what our objectives are. I'd feel much more comfortable to say, what are we really trying to achieve and how do we measure whether we have achieved it? If I were a teacher, or if I were working with a teacher, I would expect that the teacher has a lesson plan with objectives that they can measure. I would feel much better about dedicating time, especially with the holidays coming up and into the new year, if I had some idea, one, what we were going to discuss, and two, what our measurable objectives were. Otherwise, it feels frankly like a meeting to be meeting. But that's my
Well,
2 cents.
part of my concern is that when we meet, we have open meeting laws. I think it's very difficult to build relationships when we can't communicate. I mean, each of us can talk to one board member outside of a meeting. There's 5 of us, so at least one of us can't talk to anybody during the month. So I think it's important to spend that time in building relationships, and that's my goal for the meeting. I think a facilitator could help us through that and give us helpful exercises, thought points, discussion points that we could use. And I feel like, there has been some kickback in this community on some of our decisions. And I feel like that I have borne the brunt of that, and I would really like to see us be able to work together so that we can bring the community together. Because I feel like it's unfair for one board member to bear that burden, frankly.
Okay. Anyone else?
And
Mr. Jettie?
I absolutely respect what you're saying, Mrs. Humphries, about that, and I agree with you that one board member should not bear the brunt of anything like that. I also do not feel, though, at this point that a retreat is something that I necessarily would want to participate in, because I think that, I know I can only speak for myself, I think that we've all been on a little bit of overload over the last couple of months and making decisions that I don't think any of us ever thought we were going to have to make in our entire lifetime. And so much of it's controversial, but at the same time, even when we've disagreed as board members, I feel that we've been extremely respectful of each other. I don't think this is the time to be doing a retreat just because of everything that's going on, but I absolutely respect what you have to say.
Well, I appreciate that.
Okay. I'm hearing and sensing not a lot of enthusiasm for a retreat at this point, and I would just ask, rather than vote and reject the idea completely, would you consider tabling this item for future discussion, perhaps sometime in the second semester?
That would be fine. I do know it might take us some time to get on their calendar, so even if we accept it now, it might be the second semester before we could actually get a date with them. But I'm happy to table it if people aren't willing at this time. But I feel like that's exactly why we needed a retreat, to rebuild relationships and to better our teamwork. I'm not saying that we have done poorly, but I'm saying that there are things we can work on. So I'll make a motion to table.
Okay. Been moved to table this discussion to a future time.
I'll bring it back in January.
Okay. Is there a second?
I think,
I don't think there
Yeah.
is a need for a
Okay,
second.
okay.
So we will table the item,
I think we have
9.01.
to vote to table. It's my understanding that we,
if you withdraw it, or
all right.
let's just take it.
I'll
Let's
just withdraw it at this point.
Well, I can second the motion and we can move on. I'll second it.
Okay.
Okay. So it's been moved and seconded to approve a tabling of this item. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the same. Motion passes 5-0. Item is tabled, and we'll move to item 9.02. Policy development, first read, policy IHA, basic instructional program. Dr. McCord?
Thank you, Dr. Santa Cruz, governing board members. This is the first read of policy IHA, Basic Instructional Program. This policy and the next two policies have went through the policy committee last week, and big thank you to Barbara Newman for heading that up in my absence. As I understand it, was a fairly quick policy meeting, and this policy for the first read has to deal with Sandra Day O'Connor Civic Celebration Day, which would be held on September 25th. This is something that went through the legislature, and so we needed to add it to our policies as we need to adhere to it moving forward.
Is there a way we could get it put up there, Dr. McCord?
I don't have that.
Thank you, Dr. McCord. Is there a motion for item 9.02 so that
There
we
it is.
can discuss?
I move that we approve policy IHA Basic Instructional Programs first read.
Thank you, Ms. Uggetti. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. Wood. It's been moved and seconded. 9.02 is on the table for discussion.
Yeah, could you go to the next page, please?
That's where the changes are.
Yeah, that's where the blue is. There you go.
There you go.
Thank you.
Any comments, questions, concerns?
And just a note that we will bring this back to policy one more time before we bring it for a second read.
Thank you, Dr. McCord. Any further discussion? Seeing none, and we will vote. Item 9.02, all those in favor of first read policy IHA, Basic Instructional Program, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the same. Motion carries 5-0. Item 9.03, Policy Development First Read, Policy IHAMD, Instruction and Training in Suicide Prevention. Dr. McCord?
Thank you, Dr. Santa Cruz, governing board members. First read of policy IHAMD, Instruction and Training in Suicide Prevention. This is something else that was put into action by the legislature. And basically, it talks about if a school district governing board issues identification cards to students in grades 9 through 12, the school district governing board shall include at least one of the following on each new ID card issued to a student in grade 9 through 12. And that is the telephone number of a National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, the telephone number for a national network of local crisis centers, a statement describing how to access a text-based emotional support service, or the telephone number for a local suicide prevention hotline. And so we need to be able to put this into policy.
Thank you, Dr. McCord. 9.03, first read is before you. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Humphries. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. Wood. We have a motion and a second. Is there some discussion relative to this first read item?
Only that we do this already.
We do this
Is that
quite a
right?
bit.
Okay.
I don't know if it's at every one of our campuses, but it's mostly at all 6 out of the 7.
Okay.
Yeah.
You mean
So
high
we just
school?
need to make sure.
Yeah.
Yep, 9 through 12.
Oh, the high school.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Okay, seeing none, we will take a vote. Item 9.03, all those in favor, first read, policy IHAMD, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the same. Motion carries. 9.04, policy development, first read, policy KB, parental involvement in education. Dr. McCord.
Thank you, Dr. Santa Cruz. Governing board members, first read of policy KB, parental involvement in education. As you see on your screen, this is the addition to the policy, and that is number 19, which states access to the Arizona Department of Education, DOE, statutory handbook for parental rights, which is posted on the DOE website and is prominently posted on a publicly accessible portion of the district website with a link to the statutory handbook of parental rights with the title and sections listed below, and those are all listed there throughout. Again, something else that we needed to add into the policy and make sure that we have that prominently on our website.
Thank you, Dr. McCord. We are at item 9.04, policy development on the first read of policy KB. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Uggetti. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Humphries. Any discussion relative to this policy item? Appears that there is none. With that, we will take a vote on 9.04. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same. Motion carries 5-0. We are at item 10, request for future agenda items. 10.01. If not at this point, if you have some burning issue, please make sure we make contact with Mrs. Wilson, and we'll place those items on a future agenda. Item 11, board committee reports. 10.01, Gilbert Education Foundation, Mrs. Humphries.
We're doing well. We will be having our bowl-a-thon on November 19th. If there's anyone that would like to contribute, they are looking for gift cards or little things as prizes for the bowl-a-thon. So that's a big fundraiser for the Gilbert Education Foundation, and we would like it to be very successful. They provide a lot for our schools and do. I did go out to Boulder Creek. They had a day of planting with the garden that Gilbert Education Foundation funded for them, and so they had students out there planting and carrots and flowers and all kinds of different things.
Very good. Thank you, Mrs. Humphries. Item 11.02, City of Mesa Liaison, Ms. Wood.
I don't have much to report. They're just preparing their budget, working through rates discussions and other things like that. I don't know if there's any update to the filters or screens. Dr. McCord, was there any update to that?
Nothing that they've given to me lately.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Mrs. Wood. Item 11.03 and 11.04, Town of Gilbert Liaison and Finance and Audit Committee, Mr. Carr.
Thank you, Dr. Santa Cruz. I think the only real meaningful thing to mention from the town of Gilbert is to remember that there's an election for mayor, and we encourage everyone to vote. The Finance Audit Committee has not met, so nothing to report there.
Thank you, Mr. Carr. Item 11.05, Insurance and Trust Representative, Mrs. Uggetti.
We met earlier today and basically just had presentations from what's the word I'm looking for, Mr. Consultant. It's an easy word. And we're in good shape at this point in time.
Thank you, Ms. Uggetti. Item 11.06, legislative information, and recently attended the delegate assembly via Zoom and was your delegate representative there. I was impressed with how they managed that particular meeting and how they used the time wisely. It consumed a good deal of the day, but it was worthwhile, and once that legislative agenda is printed in its final form, we will make sure that all of our board members receive a copy of that. With that, we are at item 12, future meeting dates, 12.01. Dr. McCord.
Thank you, Dr. Santa Cruz. Governing board members, mentioned during the meeting, we will have a special work study / brief board meeting on Thursday, October 29th at 2 p.m. Again, that'll be live streamed. November 4th, we have a board work study and brief board business meeting. November 10th, a board policy committee. And November 17th, board business meeting. And that will take us into the Thanksgiving holiday.
I do want to mention that I won't be available for the Tuesday. I believe it's December 1st or 2nd. I will have a meeting with the Arizona School Board Association Board of Directors, so I am not available for that work study that evening. So I will work with Dr. McCord to get that information in advance.
Thank you, Ms. Humphries.
It will be the first board meeting that I will miss totally.
Okay.
In my 8 years, I've attended at least a part of every board meeting.
And 11:14 is a business meeting, is that correct?
11:17.
17.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. We are at item 13, 13.01. Adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved?
Thank you, Mr. Carr. Second.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Ujetti. Usually there is no discussion at this point in time. Then seeing none, we will vote. All those in favor of adjournment, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the same. Thank you, those of you on live stream and those of you here in the building. We appreciate your attendance. Board members, thank you for your attendance and your indulgence. We are adjourned.